Hey guys, welcome back. So now, following up after our talks of the rebirth of T'Challa, and the number of confirmations that we've seen that prove that this is the true T'Challa that N'Jadaka has tried to hide and discard, I wanted to go back and talk about the lengths that he's went to in order to do this. And I'm talking about symbiote / god status lengths. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so going back to that conversation with Captain Inyami and Nikita, I want to focus a bit about their conversation about the war between the Wakandan Empire and the Shi'ar. Because in most cases when it comes to history, you have the version that is told by the survivors, and then you have the actual truth, which is usually different when more survivors start popping up. But the main thing I want to point out here is that the history that even Nakia recognizes from what's been said to have happened in this war that took place 3 years prior to this moment, after T'Challa the Black Panther had returned, and at his return he had proven who he truly was, only to seemingly be killed in this war against the Shi'ar. And just to drop a little bit of theory right here, I believe that in that war, T'Challa was somehow the determining factor for the Empire of Wakanda coming out with that victory and obtaining the M'Kraan Shard, much like how we've seen recently after he joined the rebels, aka the Maroons, and with just the addition of him to their fighting fleet, the war between the Empire and the rebels has changed drastically. And I'll even go as far to say that he perhaps even attempted to sacrifice his own life in order to win that war to secure the victory of the Wakandan Empire. And his method could have been something like attempting to destroy the M'Kraan crystal, who knows. But what we do know is at the conclusion of that war, T'Challa was said to have not returned, and N'Jadaka, who fought with him and survived, returned with the shard of the M'Kraan crystal and was considered a hero. And with T'Challa back out of the picture so quickly, and N'Jadaka taking the credit, he went on to see more victories that continued with the people cheering his name louder than the standing emperor, who didn't like that one bit, and he ended up sending N'Jadaka on a suicide mission in hopes that he would be killed in the most dangerous of the 5 galaxies that are now ruled by the Wakandan Empire. And this was done by sending him into the galaxy that is called the Matrix of Mamadou. And as you can see here on the map represented in yellow, of the 5 galaxies, this one was the most dangerous. And through the expansion of Wakanda continuing through the reign of N'Jadaka when he became emperor, it was here where the Wakandans received the most casualties. And so throughout this galaxy, your main inhabitants were like your shadow people, but here they were attacked by vibranium hybrids, forcing him and the remainder of his fleet to flee into caves. And so keep in mind that this galaxy is mainly made up of 3 races. Your shadow people, which is the same race as Kyra, who the Hulk had married on Sakaar. Then you also had your Cronins, who are rock people, pretty much like Korg. He was a Cronin. If you've seen Thor Ragnarok, you know what that is. But the Cronins weren't so much a threat as the shadow people were. But upon retreating into the caves and really just moving in order to stay alive, it's here where N'Jadaka had led his men to the place where he would use the 3rd predominant race of this galaxy in order to retrieve the strength he needed to survive, and that 3rd race being the Clintar. And the Clintar the Wakandans knew about, because of the 3 races they had nearly driven the Clintar to extinction, and the Clintar alone didn't have much of a chance. And I mean, they probably could have bonded with the shadow people, not sure if that's ever been a thing, but the vibranium hybrids that attacked N'Jadaka were definitely a no-go. And so for N'Jadaka, when he found the symbiote hiding in the cave, they had bonded instantly because between the two of them, not only did they share a hatred for the standing emperor, but they both had a mutual need to survive. And after obtaining that symbiote, they had effortlessly fought their way through the shadow people who had cornered them, only soon after the return to the empire, kill the standing emperor and take it for his own, which is how he came into power and has been practically uncontested ever since. And so just to be clear, prior to even getting his symbiote, N'Jadaka himself was still dangerous. And at the time under the former emperor, he had been chosen by Bast to be a champion for the empire, and he had raised through a number of star systems, given enough men, imposing the Order of Wakanda. But upon his discovery, finding out that T'Challa was still alive, after having escaped the vibranium mines, and with T'Challa continually averting the lethal efforts of the Askari, initially he held off because Achieve had guaranteed him that they were closing in heavy and T'Challa's death was pretty much imminent. And for N'Jadaka, there was no doubt that this was the actual T'Challa, because he had witnessed T'Challa firsthand when T'Challa had returned, and he knew undoubtedly what he was capable of, having seen him in action against the Shi'ar. And it was around this where the Askari had cranked it up, because disappointing the Emperor isn't something that you want to do. But yet again, with the Askari failing to kill T'Challa, this attack still cost the rebellion the life of their captain, Inyami. But even still, with the addition of this, it caused Angelica to get mad nervous, because this T'Challa with no memory, he is still dangerous, just off of reacting. So for Angelica, he could just only imagine if T'Challa had achieved to get his memory back, and in addition to that, was able to come at Angelica strategically, then this would propose a much bigger problem than what Angelica wants to deal with. And so at this point, even after taking his seat as the Emperor of Wakanda and ruler of its people throughout the 5 galaxies which he's gathered, in the eyes of Bast, he is still both a champion and the Emperor, in both of which that can be replaced. And for Angelica, whose faith isn't necessarily in the gods, or his faith isn't in Bast, but rather he trusts in strength, he trusts in himself, because he believes that the strong will survive, the weak will be crushed, and only with more power can he ensure his victory. And this is what brings him to the Orisha, which is the group of gods which pretty much founded Wakanda by preventing early man from being driven out by the originators, who were pretty much beasts that existed there before man. And I kind of feel like I need to go back and do an Origin of Wakanda video in relation to a lot of the new stuff we got like in 2016, 2017 that set us up for everything that's happening now, and much of what we'll see next year in early 2019, especially with the addition of Storm, who joined the Orisha in Black Panther Volume 6, I believe. But when Angelica comes here, seeming to be in need of counsel from Bast, but instead he came here to take the power from the avatar of Bast in hopes to not only become stronger, but himself become a god. And to make this really make sense, we gotta go back to like your 2016 Black Panther, and really more like around like your 2017 of that same series, Volume 6, when we began to get into Marvel Legacy and Ta-Nehisi Coates gave us the new origin of Wakanda. Because early on at that time, like in the time of early man, when the human ancestors first began to inhabit Wakanda, there were a number of beasts who were already there. And these beasts were known as your originators. And when man arrived on this land, at first they lived together peacefully, but when it came to the point where man became more destructive with the resources, the originators began to drive them out. And it was at this time that the heroes that rose amongst them, and through their faith, they mustered the arrival of the Orisha. And it was at that moment a select number of heroes ascended into gods, because after they defeated the originators, they then banished the originators into the nether realms, which is something I feel like we'll see more of in the War of Realms, and I just think it would be pretty cool to see that come back up. But then again, the nether realms I think is more like your other void, which is a different reality from any of the 10 realms, so probably not. But after banishing the originators there, these heroes that rose into gods stood guard over these gates just to make sure that the originators weren't able to return. And it's here at these gates where Angelica arrives under the guise that he is a prodigal son, but rather with the true intention of taking the place of the avatar of Bast. And he does this because he truly believes that in order to defeat a legend, he needs more than a Clintar, and that he needs to become more than just the emperor. And much like his beliefs in only the strong survive, because of that he believes that he needs to become a god, and by challenging the avatar of Bast for Angelica, this would take him one step higher in power, with the hopes that he wouldn't be discarded, but instead become one with the Panther god and achieve eternal power. And what he does is he tricks the avatar into engaging with him in a match, and he defeats her by using the symbiote, which he knew he couldn't just throw upon her, but by allowing her to bite him. Instead, this invited the symbiote, joining them both together. And I'm just gonna take a wild guess. But by doing this, what I believe that happened is, for a brief moment with the two connected together through the symbiote, that this temporarily disqualified the both of them in order to separate Bast from her. Because with the two of them being adjoined, there can only be truly one avatar of Bast. And it's either that or he just used the symbiote to reach inside and kill her. But with either course, she had to willingly bite him to get the symbiote host access in order to kill her, making himself the only eligible avatar. But the true reason for why this worked isn't 100% spelled out for us. But all that we really see is him killing the avatar, taking her place, and now possessing the power of Bast and the symbiote, with him now having what he believes what he needs in order to defeat T'Challa. But real quick, I gotta say, with T'Challa and the Maroons being in possession at this point of the M'Kraan Shard, if this in any way turns into a battle where we get Black Panther with the Phoenix Force going up against Angelica with Bast and the symbiote, that right there is just going to be ridiculous. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know, how do you see T'Challa going up against this? And also let me know your thoughts about Angelica's tactic of winning, with him using the symbiote in order to defeat the prior avatar of Bast at the very gates of the Nether Realms. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.